Hey everybody, welcome back. This is part D of the fashion inventory problem, part of module 2 in the prep course. And this is the last fashion inventory problem, and it's kind of tricky. Relatively difficult ask is on the table, but we're going to approach it in the same way that we have been, and hopefully we'll kind of get around any issues that crop up. So same idea, fashion like a current inventory, which is an array of objects, and what we want to do is we want to find all the lace shoes. So anything with a lace inside of it is going to be what we're grabbing, and then essentially we're going to return an array of objects, one object for each shoe that has lace in it. The object is going to look like this. It's going to have two properties, one with a key of name words and a value of an array, which if you look at it is an array of the words in the shoe, name, and then a target word index, which is essentially going to be, if you look at that array and you see which of the words has lace in it, we want to have a property that has a key and a value with target word index as the key, and the value is going to be the index inside of this array, the name words array, where we find lace. So this one, 0, 1, 2, 3, so the target word index is 3. And we want one of those for every lace shoe. And as you can imagine, this one's going to be a little bit tricky. We are going to do a couple of things to shorten it. So if you look down here, you see, okay, we have to create everything. They want us to call our function generate lace details, cool, and let it take the inventory as a parameter. All right, so we're going to jump over to Replit where I've put together a couple of things for us already. Let's go ahead and we'll say function to answer the question. And generate lace details is what it's going to be called. That's the wrong one. We'll go here, function, generate lace details is going to take the inventory as its parameter, and then it's going to do some stuff. You may think to yourself, hey, this isn't an object. Why am I using assert objects equal? And it's because assert objects equal is kind of like a cheat. Basically, we're just going to stringify everything. So even though it is an array of objects, we can use this same JSON.stringify kind of cheat to get around it. Provided that we put these objects in the same order as they appear here, we're going to be in good shape. So we have our function that we're going to fill out, an assertion function to use, a variable to use for our test, an expected result, and now we're going to have a variable actual. Actual result is going to be equal to our function, generate lace details, and we're going to call that, excuse me, on current inventory. Then we're going to make a call to assert objects equal, which we could probably just write out. Assert, but we're going to spell it wrong. Assert objects equal, excuse me, an actual result, an expected result, and something like should generate properly formatted lace details. Again, if you've been following the videos for these fashion inventory ones, you'll notice that the test names for these are not great. And the reason is that, again, the categorical reasoning we apply to a function like square, where we can check to see if it squares a 0, check to see if it squares an integer, check to see if it squares a decimal. It doesn't really apply to a question like this unless we were to try to generate new versions of the current inventory with a different designer name, different shoes, maybe a different number of shoes, and then so the expected result would look different. But we're not going to do all of that here. I might put an addendum to the course where we start kind of messing around with a lot of the things that I've said. You don't have to do that here, but we could, just to show you an example of it. But for now, we are going to expect that this is the only input here. This is the only output that we're going to get. So we only really need one test, which would be check the result of our function, make sure that it equals what we think it should. So with that in place, we can now safely return back to the actual function we're going to write and start considering what it's going to look like. So if we want to generate the lace details for our inventory, the first thing might be to iterate over the designer objects, which is to say iterate over the inventory. But if we think about that, we have skipped a step. The return value based on this is going to be an array of objects. So we'll need an array of objects. So let's say create result array, and then at the very end we're going to return result array. So I'm going to name that right now. I'm going to call it lace details. We'll say lace details is equal to an empty array, and then we're going to return lace details. Iterating over the inventory, that's going to be relatively simple. We're going to say for variable I is equal to 0, I is less than inventory.length, I is going to be incremented each time. If we can find the keys, this will work better. Okay, so then we'll do what we've done previously, where we'll create a designer object and set it equal to inventory at I. And this doesn't really change anything, but it is going to make it easier to refer to whatever we are currently accessing. Okay, so variable designer object is equal to inventory at I. Now we want to iterate over the shoes for current designer. So if we picture that the designer object at this point is whatever designer we have iterated to, we can now iterate over the shoes for the designer, doing a couple things. One is we're also going to create our shoes array. We're going to set that equal to designer object, which is inventory at I, which will have a shoes property. Now that we want to iterate over the shoes, we can do for variable j is equal to 0, j is less than shoes.length, j plus plus. Can't find the plus key today. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, now that we're able to look at all of the shoes, we're going to do a couple of things. We want to create an object per each shoe that fits a certain set of categories. So what we should do is if shoe name contains lace. If the shoe name contains lace, we want to create an object for current lace shoe, and then fill object with appropriate data. That's all we're going to do for now. We're going to assume that filling the object with the appropriate data is something that we can handle. So if the shoe name contains lace, a couple of ways for us to go about this, but I think it might be time for another function. In fact, it's definitely time for another function. I'm going to say if, let's say, shoe contains lace on shoes at j. So now that we have that, let's stub out our shoe contains lace function. Shoe contains lace takes in a shoe and should return if name of shoe contains lace. Okay, so that's going to be a relatively easy ask. So let's wrap our if statement around all of this. Fill object with appropriate data. And last thing would be, of course, add object to lace details array. So create an object for the current lace shoe, fill the object with the appropriate data, which of course is all of this stuff. So we've created this object for a lace shoe. We're going to fill it with all of the data, and then we're going to add it to the result, which is our lace details array. So okay, so we have a shoe. We want to return if the shoe contains lace. So a shoe name is a string. So we'll say variable name of shoe is equal to shoe.name. This one is very arguably not a good idea, but I do want you guys, I do want y'all to have a decent idea of what I'm thinking as we go through this. So that's why we're doing that. But if your objection to this is, why on earth wouldn't I just call it shoe name? That's a pretty good objection. But now that I'm thinking about the name of shoe, what I want is something like if name of shoe dot index of lace, and essentially what we're looking for is if the shoe name does not contain lace, it's going to be -1. So provided that that is not equal to -1, we want to return true. Else, we want to return false. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a quick console.log of shoe contains lace called on a shoe name that contains lace. So we'll just grab this, because this name does contain lace. So if we were to, oh, no. We need to grab the entire shoe. So we want to call it on the entire shoe object, because that's the way that we define the function to work. So now that we have that, this console.log should say something like true, and then probably like an error or some other stuff going on after that. So have we created any infinite loops? No, nothing really terribly out of place. So we're going to see true and then probably some kind of failed test. Okay, so true. So we got our true, which is what we wanted. Let's go ahead and take lace out of here, or let's put one in there without lace. So this one does not have lace. And again, what we're doing is we're just checking to see if our shoe contains lace function works the way that we think it should. So it's returned true when we gave it a shoe that had lace. Now we're going to give it a shoe that doesn't have lace, and it should return false plus the failed test. Perfect. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and get rid of it. And we can assume that shoe contains lace is going to return true in the event that the shoe here contains lace, and it's going to return false if it doesn't. So now that we have our shoe that contains lace, we're going to create our, what should we call each one of these objects? We'll say, what do we call the other one? Lace details? Let's call this one lace object. If your objection to that is that's not a good variable name, then you're probably right. Lace object is probably not a great name, but it is going to help us tell the difference between lace details and the current lace object for a shoe that contains lace. Fill the object with appropriate data. Okay, so if we scroll on down here, we can see that there's, we want two properties. One is going to be this guy right here, and the other is going to be this one right here. So there's a couple ways that we could go about this. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with an empty object, and then we're going to use dot notation to add in the rest of the data. So for the current shoe, we want an array of the shoe name. And you picture that, let's go for this one right here. This is essentially the name of the shoe split on a space. So now that we have that, we can say lace object at name words, just to make sure we're spelling that right, name words, is equal to shoes at j dot split on a space. But here's the thing. We are going to need to do something to that array to determine where the lace index is. So we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to create an alias or two. We're going to say variable current shoe is equal to shoes at j. Replace this with current shoe. And replace this with current shoe. But we want to consider that we could also, eventually, we're going to need to pass this array of words to something. We're going to need to take this array of words and determine which index in that array contains lace. So I would say that that's another function. I'm going to say lace object at, what's it called? Target word index. So we'll say lace object at current target word index is equal to get lace index. And get lace index is going to take in, how should we do this? We'll say split name into array of words. So we'll say variable, what could it be? What do we call it down here? Name words array. That'll be fine. So we'll say name words array is equal to current shoe dot split. So now that we have that, we're going to set the value of our lace object at name words to be our name words array that we just created. And then we're going to set lace object at target word index equal to get lace index called on our name words array. Now that we have that, we're probably going to want to come down here and stub that function real quick. So get lace index is taking in a name words array. So we'll say takes in an array of name words. Now the only reason that I'm calling that something different is because we don't want to get into some kind of weird scoping issue. But to be sure, it's not going to matter at all what we call this. We could call it input if we wanted to. If we were to call it name words array though, there is the slight possibility that the way that we set this up might make things a little bit finicky. So we're going to call it array of name words. And this is going to iterate over the array of name words, return the index where lace is found. So, okay, so let's assume that that works. Now that we've created our lace object, created the name words array, added that to the lace object, and now we're adding the get lace index called on our name words array. And we can actually move this over just a little bit so it's all nice on the same line. Add object to the lace details array. So to add something to our lace details array, we're going to say lace details.push, and we push in our lace object. So now our main function is done. The only thing that remains for us is to ensure that getLaceIndex works the way that it ought to. So if that's the case, we know that the array does contain it. So we don't have to come up with some edge case about what if the array of name words doesn't contain lace at any index. It will contain that. So it's not really that big of a problem for us to worry about what if it doesn't contain it. So for variable k is equal to 0, k is going to be less than the array of name. Wow, that's a really bad variable name. Anyway, length k plus plus. There we go, we found the spaces, or the pluses. And return the index where lace is found. So you might be noticing that we kind of missed a little bit of a chance here, where we're kind of doing something very similar here as to what we're doing here. But since it's not that close and it's not identical, we're not going to really worry about that. All we are going to do is work out a way for us to determine if each word in the name words array contains lace or not. So if array of name words at k dot index of lace is, what should we say, not equal to -1, because it'll be equal to -1 for all of the name words that don't have lace in them. So if it's not equal to -1, then we know that the array of name words at k is the word in our name words array that contains lace. Oh man, these are not great variable names. But that's okay. One of the things you're going to run into is at this stage in your coding career is that it's no longer really the code that's the problem, right? All of the code that we've written so far, we've written over and over again. We've got creating objects, we're iterating over arrays, we're calling functions, some methods here and there, but it's not really that complicated. What's complicated is the organization of it. So everything that we're doing in this module is mainly not about learning new code, but about organizing the code that you've created so that it outputs things nicely. And what you're seeing here is kind of like a halfway point. So array of name words at k dot index of lace, provided that that is not equal to -1, we're going to return k. Now, let's go ahead and jump into a test. We're going to say console.log get lace index, the array of name words. We can just go down here and grab an array of name words. So let's go ahead and grab this array. And what we should get logged to the console is 3. So console.log that should be 3. Now I'm going to go down here and I'm going to comment out this because I don't want to give away the ending. All we're testing here is just making sure that the get lace index is going to give us 3 in the event that the the word at index 3 is the one that contains lace. So let's give this a run. 3. Current shoe.split is not a function. Okay. Well, what we wanted was this 3, and so we're okay there. So let's go ahead and get rid of this. Come down here and we'll comment in. I don't really think that's a phrase, but we'll do the opposite of commenting out. Then let's talk about this error. Type error. Current shoe.split is not a function. That is likely because current shoe is an object, so we probably don't want to just split at the current shoe. See, it's on line 17. So if we go to line 17, variable name words array is equal to current shoe dot name dot split, because it's the name of the current shoe that we're splitting. And we use name words right here and here, so that'll be okay. Let's go ahead and, okay, well now we're all done, right? So we have our function. Our function makes use of 2 separate functions. Shoe contains lace and get lace index. Shoe contains lace works. Get lace index, we've just proven works. Here's our assertion function and all the stuff that we did to set up our test, and then we're calling our test here on 129. So in the event that this works, it's just going to say passed. Oh, that's kind of anticlimactic. I thought we were maybe going to have one more error. Anyway, this is pretty much the way that you should be solving problems at this point. You don't necessarily have to do all of this for every problem that you solve, and you could do more. But what you want to figure is that if you're able to do this problem in a relatively short amount of time, then you're probably ready for the interview, because in general, nearly everything that might come up on the interview is at some point part of this problem. So now that we've copied everything, let's go back over to our actual function input, and that's a lot of, sorry for whistling, I'm sure that's probably a terribly annoying sound, but there's a lot of code there. So let's run the tests, and it should write their own tests. That's kind of creepy. All this basically means is that there actually aren't any tests with this. I think the test literally just checked to see if true is equal to true. As it says, no test attached to this exercise, so most effective practice is going to be you're doing what we just did on Replit. And yeah. So this is pretty much it for the prep course. The rest of the course is going to involve you recording yourself solving some new problems, but you want to picture that at this point you pretty much know what you need to know to pass the interview. So thanks very much for watching these videos. I hope they're helping. And we are going to start making new videos for the Module 3, so I guess I will see you in the next one.